It's more than 2 months since Curry won its third consecutive grand final, but the victory is still fresh in the memories of supporters. The civic reception was a belated thank you from the town, with one of the club's legends honoured by today's stars. John Sattler is one of 10 internationals produced by the club, the former Australian captain playing 2 seasons for Curry. But he turned the spotlight on Curry captain Steve Linnane.
I think it's a magnificent and massive effort, to win 3 in a row, and it's a great credit to Steve Linnane, who's been able to keep them together.
John Sattler, very proud of Curry, and he's been here once before and to one of these things, and we're very happy to have him here.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
After 7 years running the Paxton General Store, the quiet life was rudely interrupted today for Colin Smith. His wife Eileen was at the counter around midday when 2 men wearing balaclavas burst in and threatened her with a shortened firearm. They ripped out the cash register containing a few $100s and escaped with a third person in a stolen car. The alarm raised, they outran police, eventually abandoning the 1977 Holden in scrub at the Hunter Plant Operators Training School at Aberdare and fleeing on foot. One of the men was quickly arrested as the police cordon closed in. A short time later, a woman was also arrested after a brief struggle, but the third suspect proved more elusive. Cessnock police continued to comb the streets throughout the afternoon, the Polair helicopter flown in from Sydney to help in the search. Their hunt culminated late this afternoon in a standoff at a Mayfield Street house. A man was finally taken into custody just before 6 p.m. All 3 are now being interviewed in relation to a number of robberies throughout the Hunter. Ian Cameron, NBN News. Last Wednesday, NBN News highlighted the plight of Lake Macquarie landowners left with tons of unwanted tyres dumped as part of a failed dam building venture. Just 2 days later at YE, the Environment Protection Authority wound up a long-running undercover operation on illegal tyre dumping, with a police raid on an alleged secret dumping ground.
I think we've got the right person and I think we've got the right site.
The EPA has made it clear that it regards the improper disposal of tyres as an environmental disaster. In the past, it's only been able to treat it as a littering offence, imposing a maximum fine of $300. Now it plans huge fines, up to $125,000, and is letting unscrupulous operators know the Environment Protection Authority finally has some real teeth.
We'll toughen up the penalties for waste dumping, but it will also encourage opportunities for recycling of used tyres.
An in-depth report on the illegal tyre dumping business will feature in A Current Affair right after the NBN News.
Stockton Industries was established 20 years ago as a community service to provide jobs for the developmentally disabled. The workers are trained to package medical products, a project to give them a stimulating life rather than a lucrative income. But the future of these jobs is in doubt after the federal government told management tenders had been called to take over the operation. The workshop employees are shocked at the move, including Deirdre Whitty, whose son Laurie works there. The Workers' Committee has organised a petition and plan to fight the changes.
I hate to see the workshop closed down because I like all the supervisor and the manager and that, and everyone who work here.
The medical equipment is handled under strict health licensing requirements. A Queensland company, MediReady, is the workshop's biggest client, but a spokesman said today if existing management and staff are not retained, MediReady will be forced to cancel its contract. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
The vehicle is on the same side as him. He must have hit it
Howick, Mount Thorley and Hunter Valley No. 1 and 2 mines lay idle today with around 1,000 workers on strike. And they're expected to vote to go out for a further 7 days next week.
It's certainly got the ability, if you like, to turn into one of the major disputes nationally that this country's seen for some time.
CRA companies have warned they'll sue striking workers, a threat that the union says just isn't on. But Peter Murray from the United Mine Workers admits some of his members may be intimidated by the move.
Quite obviously, if you were faced with the circumstance of being a young man with a family, that would have to play very heavily on your mind. There's no doubt about that.
With the extension of the dispute onto the wharves, the Port of Newcastle will be paying for the industrial action. Port Waratah Coal Services alone estimates it will lose $1 million with the strike. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Tiny Molly, a Gould's wattle bat, was picked up by a young schoolboy who kept it in his lunchbox to show his mates.
We're getting reports of young boys and whatever being cruel to some of the wildlife that they're catching, and also by taking the wildlife home, most of it ends up dying.
National Parks and Wildlife officers are so concerned they're lecturing school children on keeping their hands off native animals like bats, possums, even snakes.
The laws relating to wildlife, is that people can't keep them at home. They need to do that under licence.
The children at Western Public in the Hunter Valley had scores of questions and answers for the care of the animals. And the general word is, for natives like Molly, leave her alone, or if she's stressed, call in the experts. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Investors gathered for the launch at the nearly 2-hectare site at Queen Street in Cooks Hill, the former site of Shortland electricity workshops. Early next year, the construction of 50 high-security homes, townhouses and units will begin. Owners will have freehold rights over their lots, but they will share responsibility for common areas such as the pool, tennis court and parklands.
People, like all of us, are very busy and we don't get a lot of spare time, and it'd be great, and I know I'd love to go home at the weekend and not have to do anything except what I wanted to do, rather than maintain the place.
Prices start at $200,000 for a piece of the $15 million project, and it's expected there will be great demand as the site is close to Newcastle Centre and the beach. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
Despite the unavailability of foreign-based players, it was a match Australia was expected to win. But it was New Zealand who had the best of the early chances at Newcastle's Breakers Stadium. Debutant keeper Jason Petkovic preventing the All Whites from scoring. But in the 30th minute, Socceroo midfielder Damien Murray beat the offside trap, slotting the ball past the All Whites keeper. Returning from a 2-year absence from the national side, striker Paul Trimboli turned in a man-of-the-match performance. His display of skill and ball control tormenting the Kiwi defence. Minutes before half-time, he set up striker Joe Spiteri, who was cut down in the box. Captain Paul Wade extending the lead from the penalty spot. The whistle had barely sounded for the second half before a brilliant individual run by Spiteri took Australia to a 3-0 lead. Spiteri's first goal in the green and gold sealing the match.
Hunter Mariners' Robbie McCormack and Graham Murray were in Sydney today for the Super League meeting with Ken Cowley. Murray confident the Knights and the Mariners could work out a deal to form one club.
Anyone can work together, it's just a matter of how you come about the compromise.
But for the trade union movement and the Newcastle Workers Club, both major supporters of the Knights, any deal would have to weigh heavily in favour of the Knights.
We believe that as far as an outcome for Newcastle, that within any compromise, the Knights must be the team for Newcastle.
Knights Chief Executive Ian Burnett is meeting with the ARL aligned clubs tonight. He had no comment on what would possibly come out of that meeting. In a message to the club's sponsors, Burnett said the Knights remain in a very strong position. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Allegations that pressures of elective surgery have become so bad at the John Hunter Hospital that emergency surgery is being threatened are no more than vicious rumours, according to the Hunter Area Health Service.
They're handled differently. We have separate theatres available after hours for urgent and emergency surgery.
Suggestions have also been made that waiting lists are being artificially reduced by striking off patients who refuse to transfer from the surgeon of their choice to less busy doctors. These claims follow a survey of people waiting for surgery to find out whether they would be willing to switch to a different doctor and hospital.
The Hunter Area Health Service has made no change to people's bookings, and we would not make any change without discussion with their surgeon. The survey is simply a way to help people get their surgery earlier, and we should be congratulated instead of being criticised.
According to the Health Service, only patients who are made a particular offer of a designated surgeon and hospital at a particular time and who refuse that offer would be deemed unavailable for surgery. But it says no such offers have been made or would be made in the Hunter region. Laura Saperstein, NBN News. Sounds like Father Christmas, looks like Father Christmas, feels like Father Christmas. But this is no ordinary Santa stand-in. This is a Santa impersonator with a twist.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a woman.
After 11 years as the only known professional female Santa impersonator, Margaret Morrison has let the cat out of the bag. Originally embarrassed by her out-of-character career choice, Marg hid her secret even from her own family.
My own daughter didn't recognise me. She was a 9-year-old at the time. And my mother, who's an actress, and she didn't recognise me either.
But Marg is now so at home in her racy red outfit and furry facial garb that she's brought her daughter Mary, spelt M-E-R-R-Y, in on the act. Marg says acting as second fiddle to the fellow in the top job is such a jolly occupation that more ladies should take on the challenge.
You're only limited by your imagination. I have a vivid and very large imagination. Nothing in this world is impossible.
Marg will be accepting children's Christmas wish lists between now and December 25. But she warns you better be good because it's up to the real Santa to deliver those longed-for gifts on the big day. A joyous moment marred by painful memories for the brothers and sisters of babies who never woke from a fatal sleep. Despite continuing research, SIDS remains a mysterious killer, though the grief felt by families of the victims is very real. The Hamilton Drop-In Centre hopes its support services and time will combine to ease that pain.
This is one of the few places that they can come without having to make an appointment. When they feel that they need to talk to someone, they can just call in.
At the centre's official opening this morning, SIDS victims and their support workers gathered to celebrate a new beginning as well as remember their loved ones. Most of the people here have been scarred by the tragic touch of SIDS upon their families. Those scars don't fade quickly. That's why this centre is providing ongoing support and understanding. Sharon Taylor is all too familiar with the life-shattering effect of SIDS. Her 10.5-week-old baby boy was one of its victims.
Because it's just constant grieving, there's no time. I find it amusing when people say, oh, you should be over your grief now, but it just doesn't go away.
Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
A record 364 games and more than 7,500 points for the Falcons wasn't enough for Michael Johnson to be offered a contract for 1996.
Well, it's obviously disappointing. In some ways, I was looking to play possibly next year.
It was basically a professional decision and definitely not an easy decision to make.
The Falcons couldn't find a role for the 32-year-old, and after 14 years at the club, Johnson wasn't about to try and resurrect his career elsewhere. It also came down to dollars. The Falcons unable to pay Johnson the same amount of money to sit on the bench.
It is a business. Certainly Tom has managed to put together a very competitive team every year he has been here, and we've been forced to make some changes this time that we wouldn't probably have liked to have made, but certainly we're very happy with the replacements.
But Johnson has left the club on good terms and says to have played for more than a decade in the NBL is ample compensation for his disappointment.
I've just had a good time this year, and if I have to go, it's been a great year to go out on.
Coach Tom Wiseman has just returned from the United States and should announce an American signing within a fortnight. The future of Grant Kruger remains in the balance, with the tough forward still to make his decision on an upgraded offer from the Townsville Suns. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Cessnock was built on the coal industry. Now those foundations appear to be crumbling. The Ellalong underground mine south of Cessnock had been the last pillar of that proud tradition. but even that is now in danger of being toppled. The company will retrench 220 of its 350 staff by the middle of next year. 100 jobs went from the mine just 12 months ago. The latest cuts come after major faults were found in a new mine that had been developed in a bid to keep the operation viable. But its closure means production will be halved, with alternative mining areas at least 2 to 3 years away. The Mine Workers Union couldn't be contacted for comment. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Back injuries cost New South Wales more than $450 million in workers' compensation claims each year. In the Hunter alone, $13 million. And that is only the direct drain on the state's workers' compensation fund. The spin-off costs, such as lost productivity, would dwarf that figure.
There's a great cost in lost productivity, but there's also, looking at it from the worker's point of view, the pain and the suffering, the inability in some cases to come back to work effectively, the loss of lifestyle.
The state government has declared war on the problem which causes such physical and financial pain. A 5-year combat plan called Backwatch is taking educational seminars to employers and health workers in regional centres all around the state. The emphasis in Newcastle today was on getting managers and employers to implement simple common sense work practices. In some cases, though, the educators come up against some difficult obstacles.
Oh, there's a bit of a macho problem out there, certainly. Sometimes people, the guys like to lift on their own, they don't like to seek help.
As part of the drive to teach better work practices to people with English language and reading difficulties, Backwatch has designed an award-winning computer game. The simple cartoon images rival even the slickest of arcade entertainments. Backwatch says educational techniques such as this one have resulted in a $3 million saving in claims in the past year alone. Laura Saperstein, NBN News. With his carbon fibre legs, Mark runs the 100 metres in 15.5 seconds and the 200 in 34.4. National records, but not fast enough to get him to Atlanta.
My time to qualify is about 2 seconds under what I'm running now, so I'm going to be struggling to make it. At the moment, if I had another pair of legs, I could possibly be faster, and it's just a matter of getting them.
At around $5,000, they don't come cheap, and even if this optimist can't raise the cash, he might still make it to Atlanta. You see, he's also a champion powerlifter. He's just smashed his own national record, lifting 92.5 kilos at the state titles. And if powerlifting loses its allure, there's apparently swimming.
I never used to enjoy swimming, I really hated it, but over the last few years I've been getting right into it, and it's improved my fitness, and I enjoy it now. And maybe one day when I can't run anymore, which I can't see that happening, but I'll take up swimming as well.
So what do you do on the days when you really just don't feel like training?
it's a bit of a problem to keep going mentally, really. You have to be strong, I suppose, and there's sometimes I do think, you know, I might just give it away and just be normal again. But no, some days it does get hard.
Obviously not too hard. After all, he's been at it for 18 years.
The Greens emerged from yesterday's hearing with the spoils of victory, but warning the fight is not over. But RZM claims it was a legal loophole, not environmental considerations, that led to its temporary licence being revoked. Under the National Parks and Wildlife Act, a licence can only be given if the company already has consent to develop the area. RZM claims it had that approval in 1978, but a flaw in the legislation meant that any development consents before 1980 aren't considered. The company is now seeking an immediate amendment to the Act by State Environment Minister Pam Allen. The company says if it doesn't get its interim licence back within a fortnight, 30 people will lose their jobs automatically. Another 30 former workers won't be re-employed at the RZM mill. And if mining doesn't start in the next few months, the multi-million-dollar operation could close altogether.
It comes at a bad time when the rest of the unemployment in Newcastle is well above the national average. I think it's around about 13%, and really it's a shame that it's happened.
RZM says the area will also lose the $400,000 a month spent in the local community and the trickle effect of $230,000 a month in wages. The company claims it's being victimised by the Green movement, but the conservation groups say they're trying to save one of Australia's most important koala habitats.
It has the highest koala density in New South Wales. It has one koala for every 1 to 2 hectares.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.